Number 10. World War I submarine. In late 2010, shifting sands along the French coast revealed the remains of a World War I-era German submarine. Known as a UC-61, the rusted vehicle ran aground over a century ago in 1917 in the northern part of the country near the seaside commune of Wissant. The ship flooded and the crew abandoned the vessel, and soon enough it became buried in the sand. This wasn't the first time the submarine appeared from beneath the sand. Wissant Mayor Bernard Brack told the BBC that the wreck emerges every 2 or 3 years depending on the tides. It's never visible for long before it's once again hidden beneath the seabed. But more of the vessel could be seen this time around than ever before, according to local tour guide Vincent Schmitt, who was hopeful that the winds and tides would expose even more of the submarine. U-61 is thought to have sunk at least 11 Allied ships before it ran aground, either by laying mines or shooting torpedoes. It was on its way from Belgium to France to lay mines, but thankfully never got that opportunity before the accident happened. Number 9. Asteroid flyby. On October 24th, an asteroid the size of a refrigerator barreled through the sky, coming shockingly close to the Earth. Astronomers found out about it hours after it passed within 1,800 miles, 3,000 kilometers above Antarctica. This may sound far, but it's actually a pretty big deal. There are satellites even further away than this. According to CNET, it was the third closest asteroid to pass by the planet without actually hitting it. Scientists didn't know about the space rock because it came from the sun's direction as it approached the Earth's daytime side, making it difficult to detect the small, dim object. The good news is that the asteroid wasn't big enough to cause any serious damage to the planet if it were to hit. Measuring just 6.6 feet, 2 meters in diameter, it would have burned up in the atmosphere before reaching the ground. NASA considers a space object to be dangerous when it measures at least 460 feet, 140 meters in diameter. Just in case a much bigger asteroid ever comes uncomfortably close to us, the agency is investigating potential ways to protect the Earth from a collision. Known as the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, DART, an upcoming experiment will test the effectiveness of deflecting asteroids by hitting them with high-speed spacecraft. That's some real Star Wars stuff right there. But as this recent discovery reminds us, scientists can only stop an object from hitting the Earth if they know that it's coming in the first place. Number 8. Fraudulent medieval map. Yale University announced the discovery of the Vinland map in 1965, a supposed medieval rendering of North America. At the time, experts claimed that it was one of the oldest maps of the continent. They cited it as evidence that the Vikings reached the western Atlantic during the 15th century. Its authenticity was soon called into question and has remained a hot topic of debate ever since. The map's provenance can only be traced as far back as 1957, when an antiques collector bought it from an undisclosed European source, and its ink crumbles in a way that had never been seen with medieval ink. Further adding to the suspicions is the fact that the map seemed to be accurate for the time period it was attributed to. A group of researchers first declared the artifact a forgery in 1973, but many still remained open to the idea that it could be real. The debate raged on until recently, when Yale experts declared once and for all that the map is a fake. A new study found that the ink contains a titanium compound that didn't appear in the product until the 1920s, thus finally putting the controversy to rest. Raymond Clemens, who is the curator of early books and manuscripts at Yale's Beinecke Rare Book Library, emphasized the importance of solving mysteries like this. He told the New York Times that fraudulent objects like the Vinland map soak up a lot of intellectual airspace. Clemens also pointed out that whoever created the map was very skilled and that it was convincing enough to fool many talented scholars over the years. Even though it's a proven forgery, the map will remain in Yale's collection. The story behind it is fascinating, making it a valuable artifact in its own right. Number 7. Gladiator's Cell. There were around 230 amphitheaters throughout the ancient Roman Empire. One of them was the Richborough Roman Amphitheater, located in modern-day Kent, England. Its ruins were identified 172 years ago, but archaeologists continue to make discoveries at the site. Recently, they found a cell that held either people or animals while they waited to perform or be executed. Known as a Carcer, it would have contained gladiators awaiting combat, prisoners who were about to be put to death, or creatures who were about to go fight for their lives. The Richborough Amphitheater seated 5,000 spectators and is thought to be one of the most important sites in Roman Britain. Experts believe that it was built during the 1st century. Once painted in red and blue hues, the structure had a unique appearance unlike any other amphitheater throughout Britain. Artifacts from the surrounding settlement, including coins, animal bones, and pottery fragments, indicate that the Romans occupied the site until almost the end of the 4th century, around the same time the empire collapsed. Hey there, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. If you're liking this video so far, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Oldest footprints in the Americas. New Mexico's White Sands National Park is home to a collection of 23,000-year-old human footprints. Their discovery has dialed back the earliest known human presence in North America by at least 10,000 years. The footprints were made on an ancient lakebed over a several thousand-year period during what's known as the last glacial maximum. Before the glaciers of the last ice age melted, children and teenagers walked along the lake, unknowingly making their mark in history. This marks a turning point in the ongoing debate over who first stepped into the Americas and when. Some researchers will argue that people reached the continent much earlier than when the footprints were made, but solid evidence of this is lacking. For example, a study published last year claimed to have found 26,000-year-old human-made tools and other rock artifacts in New Mexico. But there are many archaeologists who believe that the objects were just naturally formed. The fossilized footprints are a game changer, however. Their dating seems accurate, which means they were probably in North America at a time when scientists previously believed the continent was blocked from entry by ice sheets. For this reason, most experts believed until recently that people arrived in the Americas no longer than 13,000 years ago. They traced the earliest human presence in the Clovis people, a culture named for their unique spearheads. Now, researchers are faced with the question of who arrived in North America before the Clovis people and when they got here. Number 5. Egyptian official's tomb. A man named Ptah-M-Wia, who lived over 3,200 years ago, was an ancient Egyptian government official who wore several hats. Working under the pharaoh Ramesses II, he served as the head of treasury and the chief supervisor of livestock. Ramesses II ruled from 1279 to 1213 BC. At the time, minted coins didn't exist yet. Instead, people used goods, rations, and precious metals as currency, meaning that Ptah-M-Wia's job as the head of treasury may have been much different than it is by modern definition. Archaeologists recently discovered the high-ranking official's tomb at the vast Saqqara necropolis. In it, they found artwork depicting people leading cattle and other animals to slaughter. There are also engravings of a man, perhaps Ptah-M-Wia himself, who sits on a horn-like object near a collection of jars. Experts are currently working to decipher some hieroglyphics found above the carvings. The ancient writing indicates that Ptah-M-Wia was tasked with making divine offerings at one of Ramesses' many temples at Thebes. So far, no human remains appear to have been found in the tomb, but more discoveries could be made as archaeologists continue to excavate the burial and the surrounding area. Number 4. Marlow Warlord. An elite Anglo-Saxon man died and was laid to rest with his weapons sometime during the 6th century in what is now Berkshire, England. Last year, a metal detectorist discovered ancient bowls at the site, prompting archaeologists to investigate further. They found the man's skeleton buried with his sword and spears. Known as the Marlow Warlord, experts think that he may have been a skilled warrior and member of his community. But it's also possible that the man was buried with weapons as a symbolic gesture, according to early medieval archaeology expert Dr. Gabor Thomas. Speaking with The Guardian, he explained that masculinity was a significant part of the culture at the time. The man's skeleton showed that he was around 6 feet with a robust build. It's clear based on his grave goods that he was wealthy as well. He was buried separate from the rest of the community on an overlook above the Thames River, a place that might have been reserved for a tribal leader or some other person of high-ranking status. During Anglo-Saxon times, the region was a borderland that saw heavy conflict as kingdoms fought for control over the territory. The Marlow Warlord's burial suggests that a powerful tribe lived there in the area before other kingdoms moved in on them. Tests are being carried out on the skeleton to determine the man's age and if he had any medical conditions, and to glean any other details about his life that his remains can tell us. Number 3. World War II ghost ships. Recently, following seismic activity from an underwater volcano, 24 World War II-era ghost ships surfaced 800 miles, 1,287 kilometers off the Japanese coast near the island of Iwo Jima. The volcano, known as Fukutoku-Okanoba, has been continuously erupting since August, causing the seabed to rise and raising the ships into view. Iwo Jima is part of the Bonin Islands, a volcanic chain in a region that's prone to earthquakes and eruptions. The ships that recently turned up near the island's coast are the remnants of Japanese transport vessels that the U.S. military sank in 1945 during the Battle of Iwo Jima. It was one of the bloodiest conflicts of the entire war. It raged on for 36 days. 70,000 U.S. Marines went up against a 20,000-strong Japanese force, killing or taking prisoner all but 216 Japanese soldiers. Nearly 7,000 Americans were killed and another 20,000 were wounded. Iwo Jima had no port, so the Marines scuttled the enemy ships parallel to the island's shore to create a breakwater. Now that the vessels have reappeared, they'll probably stay put for a while. As live science writer Ben Turner pointed out, Iwo Jima is littered with unexploded bombs and grenades. Nobody lives there, and civilians rarely, if ever, visit. For safety's sake, the Japanese government will probably leave the ships in place rather than remove or scrap them. Number 2. The world's biggest treasure hoard? Since 1987, an international team of treasure hunters known as the Temple 12 has been searching in Finland for a huge collection of gold, jewels, and other artifacts known as the Lemminkainen Hoard. Every summer, they work for 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, in hopes of finding the colossal hoard, which is rumored to be worth an estimated $20 billion. According to legend, the stash contains 50,000 gemstones, including rubies, sapphires, emeralds, and diamonds. The Temple 12 also believe that they'll find 1,000 other artifacts dating back thousands of years, including 18-karat life-sized gold statues. The legend of the treasure is rooted in the Lemminkainen people of Finnish pagan mythology. In 1984, a landowner named Ior Bach claimed that he was a descendant of the Lemminkainen, and that the treasure they had left behind was on his property. It was supposedly sealed off during the 10th century to protect it from looters. Bach died in 2010, but those who believe in his tale of treasure continue to search the Sibosborg cave system outside Helsinki, where they think it's hidden. The Temple 12 believe that they're just meters away from finding it. They'll find out next year when they return to the site to continue digging. Number 1. Ancient Antarctic wildfires. Between 166 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period, Earth underwent one of its warmest periods. Antarctica was ice-free at the time and was home to temperate forests filled with pine trees, ferns, flowering plants, and dinosaurs. It became increasingly isolated from other land masses as the supercontinent Gondwana broke up, causing it to drift toward the South Pole. Throughout this time period, wildfires ravaged the northern hemisphere and tore through parts of the southern hemisphere. Until just recently, scientists were unsure of whether Antarctica saw any of these catastrophic blazes. Researchers recently examined fossilized plants from James Ross Island that bore a charcoal-like residue. A detailed look at the evidence confirmed their suspicions that wildfires did, in fact, occur throughout Antarctica. The once frozen continent had a lot more going on during the late Cretaceous period than it does now. It was rife with volcanic activity, lightning strikes, and fireballs from falling meteors, which combined in the worst possible way with the flammable plants that covered the land. It's entirely possible that the volcanic activity triggered the deadly blaze that created the charcoal that scientists studied. These findings are extremely promising, and the team is currently searching other parts of Antarctica for evidence of prehistoric fires. Thanks for watching. Which one of these discoveries was the craziest to you? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.